Hitting the hooch tonight. Just a little something, something, you know. Just a little something, something. That you love me, but you're killing me, 'cause I can't breathe. I can see that it's time to go, 'cause you're in love with a Marlboro. So I've got to leave you today, pack up my lungs and go on my way. I guess you weren't worth it anyway. You're enough to turn a man gay. Hey. Kissing you, I'd have to say, it's like jamming my tongue in an ashtray. Smoking makes you smell like shit, but when you smoke, that's what you'll get. So I've got to leave you today. I'll close up my lungs and go on my way. I guess you weren't worth it anyway, 'cause you're enough to turn a man gay. Hey. When you can, smoking is your only friend. Smoking at the beach, smoking's why you've got brown teeth. Smoking in your home, smoking when you're all alone. Smoking in your car, I can't believe you got this far. You will always smoke, because you're an inconsiderate, ungrateful little douchebag, and you only think about yourself. So go ahead and smoke, smoke, smoke. Thank you very much. Dedicated to an ex-girlfriend that smoked way too many cigarettes. What's going on, Tubage? What do you say, Tubage? I'm on early tonight. Yeah. It's just a stupid jam. More of a joke song than anything. He said wigger. Thank you. Alright, so we got chapter 2 today, The Little Don. Be right back. Time for a little Russian mafia shit. Got my secret weapon right here. What you know about that there? Alright, keep coming. That's it. There you go. Alright, it's a short chapter. We should knock this out in no time at all. A few words we gotta look up, but that's about it. So when we left off, this guy who wrote the book was visiting with one of these Russian mafia types in prison, Monya Elsin. Alright, here we go. The Little Don, chapter 2. The man who deprived Monya Elsin of his warm spot seemed, at first, too unprepossessing a figure to become Brighton Beach's first Don. So, of course, we already got a word to look up. Unprepossessing. Not particularly attractive or appealing to the eye. Hey, I can relate. I can relate. Oh, yes, I can. Alright. The man who deprived Monya Elsin of his warm spot seemed at first too unprepossessing a figure to become Brighton Beach's first Don. A short, grandfatherly man, Evsei Agran attracted little attention as he passed through immigration at Kennedy Airport on October the 8th, 1975. He was one of 5,200 Soviet Jewish emigres to enter the United States that year, many of them gangsters sent from Russia by the KGB. He had listed his occupation as jeweler, and perhaps he had even once been one. But he also served 7 years for murder in a Soviet prison camp, from which he emerged as a vor. That was one of those prison guys. After leaving Russia in 1971, he ran a large prostitution and gambling ring in Hamburg, West Germany, and even though he had supposedly been cast out of the Vor Brotherhood for welshing on a gambling debt, the order's ferocious reputation gave him sufficient cachet to quickly seize power when he arrived in Brighton Beach. Alright, so let's take a look at a couple things. How about, well, Vor, we already know. It's one of those hardcore Russians in prison who ain't taking no shit. What else we got here? Welshing. Welshing on the bet. I always thought it was Welch. So we gotta check that shit out. Let me get this out of here. Welshing on a bet. I thought it was Welch. Fail to honor a debt or obligation incurred. There you go. See, I thought it was Welch, like Welch's grapes. Is that it too? Ah? No. I spelled it, but it doesn't come up. And then we got cachet. Didn't possess significant cachet. That's like reputation. The state of being respected or admired. Prestige. You guys remember what prestige is? Prestidigitation. Magic tricks. So when you have prestige, you're full of shit, pretty much. Tasty, tasty. Got the Cabernet Sauvignon in effect. Oh, yeah. Okay. Little else is known about Agran's early years. His records from the Soviet Union were sealed, and few of his victims from the old country who are still alive are willing to share their reminiscences. From a modest office at the El Caribe Country Club, a catering hall and restaurant, the Leningrad-born Agran ran a vicious extortion ring that terrorized the Russian emigre community. So these guys came to America and they were preying on their own people. Quote, they were scared shitless of him, unquote, FBI agent William Moschella has recalled. By 1980, his gang was bringing in tens of thousands of dollars a week. Agran's victims ran the gamut from Russian doctors and lawyers to shopkeepers and grocery store owners on Brighton Beach Ave. What if they refused to pay? Chuckled a gang member in mock amusement. We'd beat them in their store right in front of everybody, but they paid. They knew it was coming if they didn't pay. They knew they'd get murdered if they didn't pay. Agran once threatened to kill a Russian emigre's daughter on her wedding day if he didn't pay the $15,000. Going to the police would have simply guaranteed a late-night visit from one of Agran's henchmen, like the Neifeld brothers, or the 45-year-old Technicolor killer Emil Puzuretsky. Puzuretsky had a great contempt for life. He killed his enemies with force, fury, and no mercy, a Russian militia colonel recalled. One of the most terrifying sounds in Brighton Beach was Puzuretsky's voice on the other end of the phone. You have to pay, Puzuretsky screamed at a recalcitrant shakedown victim in one tape-recorded conversation. Otherwise, you're not going to leave. And if you survive, you're not going to be able to pay. You're not going to be able to work anymore. So, recalcitrant. What do you think that is? Stubborn, right? Recalcitrant. Having an obstinately uncooperative attitude toward authority or discipline. All right. Willie, please don't terrorize me anymore, pleaded the distraught emigre who was being ordered to hand over $50,000 back in the 80s. We aren't living in a jungle. We live in USA. You fucking rat. I'll make you a heart attack. This is the last time you'll be able to see. If you don't give me the money, just wait and see what's going to happen to you. Puzuretsky paid with interest. The Neifeld brothers were just as savage. The steroid-enhanced thugs emigrated from Gomel, Russia, in the 1970s, early 1970s. The black-bearded Benjamin, a former member of the Soviet Olympic weightlifting team, was a bear of a man with a 22-inch neck. He once killed a Jewish youth in a Brighton Beach parking lot in front of dozens of witnesses by picking him up like a rag doll with one hand and plunging a knife into his heart with the other. The teenager had allegedly insulted Benjamin's girlfriend and reached for a weapon. After the murder, 18 witnesses vouched for Benjamin's version of events, insisting that the stabbing was a justifiable homicide. And the case was dropped. Yeah, I wouldn't have said shit either. I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't see nothing. I don't know. By all accounts, Boris Neifeld was even more fearsome than his brother. To this day, superstitious Russian emigres insist that his eyes are sheer white orbs, a sign that he has no soul and is possessed by the devil. Olga, the owner of 2 hair salons in Manhattan's Greenwich Village, recalls the day in mid-1980s when Boris and Agran swaggered into her brother's Brooklyn restaurant and ordered him to sell his 1/3 stake in the restaurant at rock bottom price. The restaurant wasn't doing so well, she says. He wanted to sell, but at a fair price. When he refused, Boris clubbed my brother over the head with his gun, she said. Olga and her family lived in the same Brighton Beach apartment complex as Neifeld and his non-Jewish wife. Boris's kids were always playing with my kids in my house, said Olga, still enraged over the decade-old incident. One night, she tailed Boris's Mercedes. At an intersection, she hit her brights and flew out of the car to pick a fight. How dare you, you shit, to do this in the house where you live, you bastard? We're only trying to help your brother, replied an unfazed Neifeld, who with Agran stole the restaurant anyway. Resistance like Olga's was rare. Yeah, she got away with it because she's a chick, that's all. Believe me, if I was a dude jumping out of his car and rolling up like that, bedtime. They had left a brutal society where the state and the government were as crooked as the crooks. Their blatant distrust of authority carried over to the United States. The American government, which had generously given them refuge and financial assistance, was still the enemy. There was a great tolerance for white-collar crime. The new emigres routinely cheated on their taxes, stole food stamps and welfare benefits, and shopped in sable coats while their late-model Mercedes were parked in the mall. Got a Mercedes parked outside in a sable coat worth thousands of dollars and using food stamps. That's great. Medicare, Medicaid, and other forms of insurance scams were ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means all over the place, throughout. Let's see. Ubiquitous, present, appearing, or found everywhere. There you go. There it is. Present, appearing, or found everywhere. Ubiquitous. Medicare, Medicaid, and other forms of insurance scams were ubiquitous. Stealing from the government was as much a part of their culture as was paying off the mob. Their own xenophobia was one of their greatest enemies. It allowed the mobsters in their midst to act with impunity. So xenophobia is fear of outsiders, right? Yeah, isn't that one of those lefty words? You're xenophobic, bro. Xenophobia, intense or irrational dislike or fear of people from other countries. Or sometimes it's a well-founded fear. I guess in that case it's not xenophobia then. How about impunity? Doesn't that mean without consequences? Exemption for punishment or freedom from the injurious consequences of an action. Okay. However, However viciously cruel his subordinates, it was Agran who was despised above all in Brighton Beach. His own brand of cruelty involved carrying around an electric cattle prod, with which he enjoyed personally torturing his victims. Unlike some Russian Vors, Agran held fear above honor. If Agran had been an honorable godfather, he wouldn't have had to use brute force to extort shopkeepers, says Ivan, a former resident of Brighton Beach and a Gulag veteran. Instead, he would have been showered with gifts, both as a sign of homage and as payment for protection from ruthless street predators like Monya Elson. The owners of the stores would have said, "Oh, please, take from me." The widespread antipathy, that means hatred, toward Agran finally found its release one night in 1980. So everybody hated Agran because he tried to make everybody fearful of him instead of acting with honor. And so he had a lot of people that didn't like him. The widespread antipathy toward Agran finally found its release one night in 1980. While strolling down the Coney Island boardwalk, Agran was shot in the stomach and lost part of his lower intestine. Quote, "We hired a retired cop to stand guard over him at Coney Island Hospital," recalled a Genovese wise guy who had begun a close alliance with Agran. "I have a friend in police intelligence. He went to talk to Evsey, who had tubes in his nose and arms." Evsey Agran. "Do you know who shot you?" asked the detective. "Yes," Agran nodded. The detective reached into his suit and took out a ballpoint pen and pad. "Who?" "We'll take care of it," he said soothingly. Wagging his finger, Agran rasped, "I take care of it myself." There was no shortage of theories about who shot Agran. Perhaps it was connected to Agran's local gambling debts, said the smart money on Brighton Beach boardwalk. Perhaps the hit was contracted by someone Agran had chiseled in Germany, the Genovese source surmised. Perhaps a member of his own gang thought it was time to replace the imperious Don. Shopkeepers along Brighton Beach Avenue prayed. Imperious. Doesn't that mean like acting like an imperial, like an emperor? Imperious. Assuming power or authority without jurisdiction. Just taking that shit. Arrogant and domineering. They were so... A lot of people didn't like him. Agran shrugged off the attempt on his life. He remained supremely self-confident. His boys were making major scores in everything from truck hijackings to Medicare fraud. He even purchased a Russian-language newspaper in Brighton Beach so the burgeoning emigre community could read all the news that was fit to print, according to the Little Don. Burgeoning emigre community means it's just getting started. It's starting to grow. The paper was torched. Still, Agran retained an iron grip over the most powerful Russian crime group in Brighton Beach, with outposts in at least a half dozen North American cities. Agran's criminal authority was bolstered by two highly potent allies, the Genovese crime family and Ronald Greenwald, a politically savvy, well-connected Orthodox Jewish rabbi. These connections, Agran concluded, made him invincible. More than that, without Greenwald's careful nurturing of Agran's criminal career and the Italian mafia's muscle, the Russian mob in America might never have been anything more than a minor annoyance, a two-bit gang of emigre hoodlums. The nexus between the Russian mob and the Italians was a man named Murray Wilson, whose consummate money laundering skills had earned him a reputation at the FBI as a modern-day Meyer Lansky. Wilson, a Genovese associate, engineered some of the Russian mob's first big criminal scores, and eventually he would help a second generation of Russian racketeers become a financially sophisticated global peril. Wilson was raised in a bare-knuckles neighborhood in the Bronx where Jewish gangs like Murder, Inc. once roamed. He preferred hanging out with street corner gangs and wise guys to pursuing a legit career, quote-unquote. Like his able cousin, Marvin Josephson, the founder of International Creative Management, the largest theatrical and literary talent agency in the world. I fucked that sentence all up. He preferred hanging out with street corner wise guys to pursuing a legit career, like his able cousin Marvin Josephson, the founder of International Creative Management, the largest theatrical and literary talent agency in the world. A little liquid courage. Barely managing to eke out a diploma from Taft High School, William Taft, the only guy to be president and Supreme Court judge ever, and he was Skull and Bones. Matter of fact, Taft's father helped open Skull and Bones at Yale with that opium money. Barely managing to eke out a diploma from Taft High School, Wilson nonetheless effortlessly mastered the intricacies of offshore accounts, letters of credit, and complicated international stock market transactions. In the process, Wilson, who has an import-export firm and is a restaurateur, became the focus of at least 8 criminal probes. Wilson's patron in the Genovese family was underboss Venero Benny Eggs Mangano. Benny Eggs. Benny Eggs began his career as a soldier with Lucky Luciano and rose to oversee the Genovese family's multi-billion-dollar-a-year racketeering enterprise. He once boasted over an FBI wire that he surrounded himself with Jewish associates as fronts to help generate and hide illicit funds because they were shrewder at such financial dealings than the Italians. According to Benny Eggs, when a Jew had an annual income of $2 or $3 million, he would declare a healthy $300,000 of it on his taxes, enough to avoid raising any suspicions with federal authorities. An Italian-wise guy, on the other hand, might declare only 10 grand. That's fucking racist, man. Fucking racist. It was the IRS, he warned, that had nailed Al Capone. It's true. Nobody got to Al Capone except for the IRS on that tax shit. The Jewish gangsters, they know how to work that money shit. Fortunately for La Cosa Nostra, Wilson, a pugnacious, that means ready to fight, a pugnacious right-wing Jewish militant who was active in resettling Russian Jewish emigres in Brooklyn, quickly deduced that many of the new arrivals were not long-suffering, downtrodden Jewish dissidents, but professional thieves and hitmen. A potential bonanza for the Genovese crime family. The Italians were not only getting the services of highly skilled Russian crews, but were extending their control to a new neighborhood. They already had affiliations, for example, with the Greek mob in Queens and the coke-pushing Dominican gangs in Washington Heights. Wilson introduced Agran to the Genovese chieftains, forming the nucleus of the Dark Alliance. A day didn't go by when a truck hijacking or a jewelry heist didn't go down, a Genovese good fella who committed many street crimes with the Russians admitted. It was a time of high adrenaline. Although Agran was very much the junior partner, enamored of the Italians for their well-entrenched national power base, their vast army of soldiers and political connections, the Genovese bosses valued Agran's crew for its tireless work ethic, ruthlessness, and most especially, its global connections. Nevertheless, there were major cultural differences between the ethnic crime groups that sometimes caused friction. With a few exceptions, the Italian gangsters lived quiet lives in modest houses, trying not to call attention to themselves. On the other hand, the Russians have a tremendous zest for life and like to live large, says James DiPietro, a criminal attorney in Brooklyn who has represented both Russian and Italian underworld figures. They keep saying, "We are Russians and we are proud of being Russians. Russians are the best." One Halloween at Rasputin. A Russian mob haunt in Brooklyn. They came in Ronald Reagan masks in limos. They love to flaunt their affluence. And unlike the Russians, the Italian mobsters more or less adhere to the established rules of conduct. The Italians don't kill civilians, not even the family members of rats. The Russians have no such codes. So you can see the differences. It seems like the Russian mobs were, those Russian Jews were a little crazier than the Italians. Kind of like anything goes, which is scarier if you have to deal with them. At least the Italian guys, you could somewhat reason with them. Rabbi Ronald Greenwald did as much for Agron's career as did the Italian gangsters, and then helped groom a new generation of Russian wise guys to enter corrupt third world countries and loot their natural resources, a charge the rabbi denies. But well-placed sources say that some of the little Don's biggest scams were hatched in the rabbi's downtown Manhattan commodities firm. Greenwald says he first met Agron in West Berlin while he was innocently sitting in a hotel lobby wearing a yarmulke. There's a different spelling there. Let's check it out. Yarmulke. Yarmulke. Look at that. It's a small hat worn in public by Orthodox Jewish men. I always thought yarmulke. That's how you pronounce. That's how you spell it. Yarmulke. Wow. Well, you learn something every day. Greenwald says he first met Agron in West Berlin while he was innocently sitting in a hotel lobby wearing a yarmulke. The rabbi says Agron started a conversation with him about Judaism. He claims he didn't know that Agron was a vicious extortionist who tortured victims with a cattle prod and ran an infamous prostitution and gambling ring and empire. Greenwald allegedly helped Agron to get a U.S. visa, according to several former business associates of both men. The rabbi denies that he helped Agron enter the United States, but admits that the mobster would sometimes visit his Manhattan office. In fact, his office was a magnet for a host of Russian and Italian gangsters, as well as a powerful U.S. congressman and a convicted KGB spy. Let's check out the chat. Only a couple people here. Cheers. I'm going early today. At Daniel Carroll. Oh, Daniel Carroll. I like your channel, man. Cool. Mr. Soup. You know, it's good to see we have some cross membership, if you will. Because I'm as pro-white as they come. Believe me. But when it comes to the GDL side, I think it's best to go easy and just toss out pink pills instead of red pills. Little by little, you know what I'm saying? A little bit here, a little bit there. Besides, GDL is mostly white, and most of the white people in GDL are receptive to the pro-white message. So, I'm in no hurry. Take my time. I'm gonna go easy, you know what I'm saying? Forget about it. Greenwald was born on the Lower East Side in 1934. Quote, I was the only kid in school who played hardball without a glove, unquote. Greenwald told me. That's how tough I am. He went to Jewish day schools and then to rabbinical college in Cleveland. Though he is an ordained Orthodox rabbi, he never took the pulpit. I felt I should be out in the work world. At one time or another, Greenwald has been a bank director, president of small business college, gas station owner, chaplain for the New York State Police, a liaison between a segment of New York's Orthodox Jewish community and the state Republican Party, and a high-risk entrepreneur with ties to the Genovese crime family and the Russian mob. These guys are connected, man. Remember, it's like the 80s. But it was as a political operative for Richard Nixon that Greenwald first made a name for himself. Talk about connections. The then president had received 17% of the Jewish vote in 1968, and he wanted to double it in 1972, when your faithful host was born. New York, with its huge Jewish population, was a crucial state, and Greenwald, as one of the 1971 New York Times story put it, was a key to Nixon's New York effort. Nixon was dirty as hell, so it figures he'd be hooked up with a guy like Greenwald. They're all dirty, though. As opposed to what, right? He was dirty as opposed to what? All politicians. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle. Greenwald was recruited by CREEP, the Committee to Re-elect the President. That's a real thing. It was called CREEP, the Committee to Re-elect the President, to mine for Orthodox Jewish votes. So they used him to try to get votes in New York for Nixon. He toured synagogues, warning that McGovern would betray Israel and wipe away Jewish gains by giving away too much to blacks. His efforts paid off. Nixon received nearly 36% of the Jewish vote in 1972. If you help get a president elected and you help a president carry a state because of the Jewish vote, that president now owes you a favor. That's how it works. I scratch your back, you scratch my back, quid pro quo. Let's see if we can bring that up. Just for the fuck of it. Break it up a little. Quid pro quo. A favor or advantage granted or expected in return for something. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, everybody's happy, forget about it. The rabbi was repeatedly in the throes of some political scandal or other. After Nixon was reelected, for example, he was rewarded with a plum post at the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare as a consultant on Jewish poverty programs, including a job training program for Brooklyn's Hasidic community. There you go. There was the payback. He got a plum post, like a nice cush job, at the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, being a consultant to Jewish poverty programs. So he got a nice little salary going for himself as payback, a little kickback, and he got to help his people. Oh, this is during Giuliani's time. Greenwald was soon being investigated by a young federal prosecutor named Rudolph Giuliani for allegedly placing jobs program trainees in a garage in Williamsburg, of which he was part owner, as well as for creating no-show jobs, where you take a paycheck, you're on the books, but you don't really do anything. Nice. The investigation was dropped, and Greenwald has denied wrongdoing. That means he paid Giuliani off. That's what that sounds like. A few years later, he was in front of Giuliani again, this time pleading for Mark Rich and Pinky Green, the billionaire fugitive financiers and commodities brokers who fled the United States in 1983, one step ahead of a 65-count federal indictment for fraud and income tax evasion. Who's the president that pardoned Mark Rich? Was it Clinton? Was it Clinton? Let me think here. Let me see if I can find something here. Let me see if I can find it here. Clinton. On his last day in office, Clinton pardoned Mark Rich. And he shows up in here too. This is something else. I think this book was written in 2000. All right, so now that we know who Mark Rich is, let's go back and read that one sentence again. A few years later, talking about this Jewish guy, Greenwald, the rabbi, he was in front of Giuliani again, this time pleading for Mark Rich and Pinky Green. That guy I don't know. The billionaire fugitive financiers and commodities brokers who fled the United States in 1983, one step ahead of a 65-count federal indictment for fraud and income tax evasion. Greenwald, who was their business representative in the United States, tried to cut a deal that would bring them home to face civil, but not criminal, charges. Hasidic community leader Rabbi Bernard Weinberger, who along with a group of Orthodox rabbis sat in on the meetings, said that Greenwald told Giuliani that the fugitives were great humanitarians because they gave vast sums of money to Jewish charities. Giuliani was unmoved. Sounds like Giuliani's saying, it's going to cost you a little more than that, son. Thanks to his friendships with Greenwald and the Italians, Agran was soon participating in schemes that dwarfed the type of street crime that had been the Russians' mainstay. They're starting to move up. In 1983, federal agents investigating a mafia skim of the casino at the Dunes Hotel in Vegas stumbled onto a multi-million-dollar fraud perpetrated jointly by Agran and Wilson and planned with Greenwald in Greenwald's office. Ridiculous, Greenwald says. The Dunes was owned by Morris Schenker, Jimmy Hoffa's attorney and longtime target of FBI probes. During the 1950s and 60s, Schenker, himself a Russian-born Jew, had invested hundreds of millions of dollars of the Teamsters Union Central States Pension Fund. Those pension funds are big time, which he and Hoffa controlled, into the Dunes and other famous Las Vegas hotels, giving the mafia a hidden share of the gambling mecca. According to the FBI, some of that money was being siphoned off in the scam set up by Wilson and the others. He arranged for Agran and a dozen members of his crew to fly into Las Vegas on all expense-paid junkets. The gangsters were each given lines of credit up to $50,000, but instead of gambling the money, they simply turned their chips over to Wilson. The chips were later cashed out. The markers never repaid. Markers, like when you borrow money, you get a marker. Say, hey, give me a marker for 50 grand. It means you owe the casino 50 grand. In this way, over a period of several months, the Russians helped defraud the Dunes of more than $1 million. Must be nice. Take notice, though. Even these crooked-ass criminal fucks did not gamble the money. I'm born and raised in Atlantic City, and let me tell you, that's good advice. Keep the fucking money. Matter of fact, the worst thing that can happen to you in a casino is that you win when you first go. If you win the very first time you go to a casino, you're going to be convinced you know how to do it, and it's just going to happen again and again, and it just doesn't work that way. Let's check the chat. Gun Noob, what's up, Gun Noob? The Goyim no Phoebe Blusky. Phoebe Blusky. Shamricha. Damn right you lose. Alright, let's get back to it. The government believed that Schenker had masterminded the scheme. He eventually plundered the dunes into Chapter 11. That's bankruptcy. Indicted for personal bankruptcy fraud in 1989, Schenker decided... Have another drink. Indicted for personal bankruptcy fraud in 1989, Schenker died before the government could mount its case. When Russian-speaking FBI agents traveled to Brighton Beach to question the erstwhile junketeers, quote, "The Russians wouldn't talk to us," said the agent who ran the investigation. They said, "What can you do to us after the KGB and the Gulag?" This is a good point. The only thing they were afraid of is that we would deport them, and we won't do that. By the mid-1980s, not only had Agran achieved a certain measure of criminal notoriety and power, but he was also beginning to add more sophisticated schemes to his criminal repertoire, a development that did not go unnoticed among the Italian mafia's bosses. So repertoire, we've had that a few times already, but let's check it out anyway. You can tell by just listening, you know it's French. Repertoire, that means doesn't that mean your MO, your method of operation? Repertoire. Repeat, like it's the thing you do over and over again. Let's see. Repertoire. A stock of plays, dances, or pieces that a company or performer knows or is prepared to perform. Not that one. The third one. A stock of skills or types of behavior that a person habitually uses. Yeah, your MO. The way you repeat. You can see the words repeat is in there. And if you see right down the bottom, it says from French repertoire. 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 See repertory. That's it. Doesn't that mean to repeat? We get it. Back to the text. By the mid-1980s, not only had Agran achieved a certain measure of criminal notoriety and power, but he was also beginning to add more sophisticated schemes to his criminal repertoire, a development that did not go unnoticed among the Italian mafia's bosses. The Italians were particularly impressed with the Russians' growing adeptness at bilking financial markets, that means robbing them, which was aided by members of a younger generation of Russians who were now returning from graduate schools with MBAs and getting jobs on Wall Street. Getting sophisticated. Gambino crime family head Paul Castellano, he was killed, for instance, was overhead... At least the wine is good. Now I know it's good. Gambino crime family head Paul Castellano, for instance, was overheard on an FBI wire praising a Russian fraud that involved manipulating the stock in Bojangles, a fast food chain. But as potent a force as Agran had become, he was still prey to the cutthroat struggles for dominance that continued among the lawless Russian gangs. And on a cold evening in January 1984, as he walked up a gentle slope from the garage in the basement of his home on 100 Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, Agron was shot again. This time, twice in the face and neck at point-blank range. The Don was rushed for a second time to Coney Island Hospital. Though Dr. Larissa Blinken was unable to remove the slugs, she did save his life. This guy's indestructible. He's like Tupac. But not without leaving the mobster's face paralyzed on one side, twisted in a permanent sneer. Once again, when the police asked him if he knew the assailant, he said he'd take care of it himself. Ooh! God damn! These guys are hardcore. Shot twice in the face and once in the neck, point blank. Who's the guy that tried that killing? Why wouldn't you, when he goes down, obviously the guy had to go down, right? Why wouldn't you put one in the back of his head? I guess the guy thought he's got to be dead, right? Holy fuck. As he had during the earlier attack, Agron believed he knew who had authorized the hit. He had recently been feuding with an upstart Russian gang led by Boris Goldberg. You don't hear many names like that. Boris Goldberg, an Israeli army veteran from the USSR, and a Ukrainian-born David Napoleon Schuster, a criminal mastermind who was reputedly the best pickpocket in Brighton Beach. Wait, I thought that was our boy. Anyway, the Goldberg gang maintained a formidable arsenal in a safe house on West 23rd Street in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood. The armory included an assortment of pistols and silencers and cartons of hand grenades and plastic explosives, as well as a numerous amount of remote-controlled detonators. Goldberg owned a kiddie ride company off Kings Highway in Brooklyn called Rainbow Amusements. Nice little front. As a cover to score narcotics, exactly, he used to do a lot of travel to the Far East to look at new rides, says Joel Campanella, a former New York City cop who is now a U.S. Customs official. The gang sold coke out of its Chelsea stronghold to mid-level street dealers and, according to police statements made by a gang member, to film stars and the managers of rock bands. Wow. Wow. It was also the scene of non-stop drug and sex orgies. Sounds like fun, but if I got to surround myself with that type of company, I'm going to take a rain check. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So glad you invited me, but I got other stuff I got to do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not getting wrapped up in that crowd. Sounds nice, but no thank you. Goldberg, a bland-looking man with black-framed Coke bottle glasses. What's that conjure up in your mind? Like the typical Jew glasses, you know, the old school? Like something you might see on Larry David's show. What was his show? Curb Your Enthusiasm? Like his dad, right? Yeah. It was pretty funny, by the way. It was also the scene of non-stop drug and sex orgies. Goldberg, a bland-looking man with black-framed Coke bottle glasses, had a growing cocaine dependency that made him so paranoid that once, after hearing a siren, he flushed 2 kilos of Coke down the toilet, then pulled a sweaty wad of cash from his pocket and ordered an underling to run out and procure 2 more kilos so he could continue his cyberatic party. His cyberatic party. All right. I'll let you guys see the word. All right, see it right here? It's the last sentence. Cyberatic party. What do you guys think? What the fuck? I've never seen that word in my life. I'll be straight up. I would say cyberatic. I'm thinking cyborg. That doesn't make sense. I have no guess. That's the thing I like to do. Before I check a word, what its definition is, I'd like to try to guess. Just to have fun with it. So I got to make some kind of guess. Well, it's a coke party, right? They got gangbangs and shit going on, and so he can continue his cyberatic. I would say immoral, over the top. Let's see. Fond of sensuous luxury or pleasure. Self-indulgent. Wow. Fond of sensuous luxury or pleasure. Self-indulgent. So they were getting busy. That's what they're trying to say. He was getting busy. So here's the guy who got so paranoid, he heard a siren and he flushes 2 kilos of coke down the toilet. And then when he found out it was a false alarm, he gives one of his guys a bunch of cash out of his pocket. Says, go get me 2 more keys. Oh, man, these guys are crazy motherfuckers. If they weren't stone cold killers, I probably would have partied with them back in my day. I had about a 10-year period in my life where nothing was off limits. Nothing was off limits to me. Then I wised up. Maybe one of these days I'll share what a true friend is. How a true friend snapped me out of my bad ways. Because a fake friend will keep you going. They'll say, yeah, let's party, let's get fucked up, who cares? They're never there for you when you got hard times. But as long as the good times are there and you're partying, as long as the music's playing and the drugs are running, they're like, yeah, this is the shit. Yeah, me and you, we're cool. A real friend will check you when you've gone too far. And I'm fortunate enough that I got 3 people in my life. And ironically, I met them all within about 1.5 years. In about 3-year period. When I moved to a new town when I was in 8th grade, I met 2 of them. One was a half Jewish kid, and the other one was an Italian kid. I'm still friends with them today. We're like brothers. Can't fucking break us up. The funny part is the half Jewish guy is way more of a Nazi than I could ever be. The Italian guy, God love him. I can't say enough about him. And my 3rd friend is a Puerto Rican dude. And he let me stay at his house in another state when I hit rock bottom about 4 or 5 years ago. Fucking dead rock bottom. If you look on my videos, you'll see that before this latest bunch of videos, you'll see that I hadn't made a video in 3 years. I was going through some shit. I had to find my way. And that motherfucker was there for me. My Boricua friend. Never forget them. Ever, ever, ever forget your friends. When they're there for you, man, I will die for any one of them. And that ain't no bullshit. That ain't just the wine talking. Believe me, that's real talk. I get choked up thinking about my friends. Not everybody's that fortunate. And I value them all. I really do. Let's check the chat. What's up, Mr. Bad Guy? So you know, Bad Guy, if something happens to Handsome Truth, it's going to be you or Sway who's taking over, right? something happens to you or Sway, I guess I'll have to step in. The point is GDL really has no leader. Any one of us can step in and take over and guide the mission. And that's what's cool about us. I say us, like I'm not an official member, mind you. But I got so much in common, I feel a camaraderie. No, we don't need a leader, you're right. And I think the fact that if you took out Handsome Truth or me and Sway and Bad Guy and anybody else, this thing will still keep going on its own. That's the strength of a movement. It's too easy to take one person out and then the whole thing is done. Don't you ever put your too many eggs in one basket, I would say. You never know what the future holds. Alright, so let me ask the question. If you guys got a friend or more than one friend who you know will pretty much do anything for you, drop a number in the chat indicating how many friends you have like that. Bad Guy. Dude, one of these days, Bad Guy, me and you are going to hook up. Four, wow. 3, 0. Not everybody's lucky enough. What with, Bad Guy? What with, if I may ask? Or unless you want to just keep it personal, you don't have to say. You know I'm in Jersey, bro. I'm down here in Atlantic City. I'll help out. I'd be glad to, man. I need shit to do. Keep me busy. Alright, so Shan says 0. Alright, Shan, I got a question. How old are you? And why is it that you think, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer, but why is it that you think you don't have any? You think it's, be honest now, you think it's your fault or just the circumstances, just the way it happened? Oh, shit. Bad Guy's got shit. Oh, so maybe... So, Shan, maybe you had friends, good friends, but they passed away, or you just kind of moved apart? Because shit happens over time. Well, that's good. You know what? Even if you're 60, like, I'm 46, I'm going to be 60 like that. The next 14 years, I know how the last 14 years went by like that. The next 14 are going to go by even faster. But don't ever think that it's too late to make new connections with people. It goes quicker and quicker the older you get. You know, still look to make those connections. Yeah, it's still possible. We all need somebody. Nobody in this life ever makes it through totally alone. I always thought that too. Yeah, I don't fucking need nobody. I've relied on people. I could have never gotten where I am without friends, without help. So I hope you do. I hope you find somebody you could break the ice with. And then, you know, trust doesn't happen overnight, like you know. But when you're with somebody and you build up a relationship in terms of trusting each other, trust is earned. And even me with my friends that I've been friends with for 33 years, you still got to keep proving your trust over and over. Once trust is earned, it's not just, given. You still got to keep proving yourself. Indengo reina. Trust is earned, it's not given. And it must be maintained, trust. Absolutely. Alright, so let me go back and look at some other numbers. Phoebe Bluski said 1. The Jews call me Shiksa says 1. Alright, for you guys, you two that said 1, if you don't mind, how old are you? And give me an idea how you got your one friend that you trust like that. Okay, 47. Oh, your hubby. Okay, that's cool. That's what's up. It's rare to have your significant other be your friend, too. So that's cool. What I was looking for is somebody with too high a number. Let's go to the highest number, which was 4. And that was James. 1 by 1 by 1 by 1, which equals 1. So James, you're blessed. I thought I had a lot. That's 3. 4. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about your little situation there. That's cool, Phoebe. I'm reading you. So you got 4 friends, huh? Someone said 10 plus? Nah. Oh, Patchy Paul Revere. Alright, how much you want to bet? Patchy Paul Revere is younger than all of us. Alright, the Jews call me Shikska. Said I just turned 50. My best friend forever is my family. Wow. Oh, I see. My best friend is family. Better than my family. So you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. I know what you're saying. Okay. Wow, okay. 10? Like, I'm talking about trust, like, with your life. Like, you would trust them with anything. 10? For Patchy Paul? You got it, Shiska. That's what's up. Oh, you're in a club. Alright, well, if it's personal, private information. Skins. Oh. Okay. Well, that's different. Okay. That's cool. The reason I ask all this is because I find that is an inverse relationship between the number of friends and the quality of friends. So the lower numbers of friends, the more quality they are. It tends to be, generally. And the more friends you have, the less that you're really tight with any one of them. You know, you're like tight, like, so if you got 10 friends, you're all brothers. I've been in clubs too. And you're all tight, but the thing is, When you're friends with 2 people, 3 people, 1 person, it's an intimate tightness. It's different. When you're friends with 10 people, it's kind of hard to spread yourself out to all of them in a really intimate way. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, quality over quantity. Yeah, you got to have a balance, right? You got to have at least a couple other options. All right, Patchy Paul. That's it. I'm just talking shit. All right, let's see. Where are we? So, we got this guy, Agran. He just got shot in his fucking face twice. And he got shot in his neck. And he didn't die. They saved his life. And so again, the police came up to him with their pen and pad and said, give us a description. He's like, I take care of it myself. Except he said it with a Russian accent, not an Italian one. Okay, so Agran believed he knew who had authorized the hit. Recently, he got in a beef with this upstart Russian gang led by Boris Goldberg. And Boris Goldberg was an Israeli army veteran from the Soviet Union. And there was another guy, this Ukrainian guy, named David Napoleon Schuster. What a fucking nickname, Napoleon. Just known as a killer. A criminal mastermind who was reputedly the best pickpocket in Brighton Beach. The Goldberg gang maintained a formidable arsenal in a safe house on West 23rd Street in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood. The armory included an assortment of pistols and silencers and cartons of hand grenades and plastic explosives, as well as numerous remote-controlled detonators. That's where I'm going when the apocalypse hit. I'm going with them guys. Goldberg owned a kiddie ride company off of Kings Highway. We talked about this. He used it as a front. And he used to go to the Far East to look at new rides. What was he really up to? We don't know, said a customs official. The gang sold cocaine out of their Chelsea stronghold to mid-level street dealers and even film stars and rock bands. Then they said it was the scene of non-stop drugs and sex orgies. There's the Coke bottle glasses, the typical... What was that? The guy, the creator of Seinfeld. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. His dad. It was the scene of non-stop drug and sex orgies. Goldberg, a bland-looking man with black-framed Coke bottle glasses, had a growing cocaine dependency that made him so paranoid that once after hearing a siren, he flushed 2 kilos of blow down the toilet, then pulled a sweaty wad of cash from his pocket and ordered an underling to run out and procure 2 more kilos so he can continue his symbiotic party. Overindulgence. When Goldberg wasn't holed up in his hideout, he was often cuddling with his girlfriend Tonya Biggs, the daughter of Penthouse publisher Bob Guccione. Biggs was an editor of Forum. Changing pages here. Biggs was an editor of Forum, a magazine also published by her father. She lived in Beverly Hills and was about 30 years old, blonde, big chest, but a little sagging. Goldberg gang member told Goldberg gang member Charlie Rivera, a razor-thin man who's half Sicilian on his mother's side, told law enforcement agents. Quote, she also had a penthouse in New York, and he sold coke out of both places. Boris would bring coke out from New York and would sell some out there. Unquote. Biggs later conceded that she let Goldberg use her home for coke parties, but she denied helping him peddle it. Crazy shit. You could tell he's picky. He's like, hey, she had a nice titties, but they were a little sagging. Stop complaining. Get in there and do your business. Meanwhile, the Goldberg gang, hopped up on drugs, insanely violent and indiscriminate, was responsible for a staggering string of robberies, shootings, insurance frauds, auto thefts, and narcotics sales. They hurled grenades at the storefronts of recalcitrant extortion victims in California and performed contract murders as far away as Texas. What kind of balls does it take to throw a hand grenade at a storefront? What kind of connections do you gotta have to get hand grenades in the first place? Now that's a prepper. Let me check the chat right quick. Patchy Paul says he trusts with his life. That's awesome. And I guess at your age, you said you're 44, so like the proving period is over. I imagine you've been with him for a long time, and that everybody's proved themselves. Because in 20 years, you go through some shit, and then you find out who's who. Excuse me. How many would stay and wipe your ass and keep doing it? Primordial Soup, I don't know. I don't know anything about Chelsea or Hell's Kitchen. I think Hell's Kitchen's New York, right? On the Upper West Side. No Irish, though. Alright. Meanwhile, the Goldberg gang, hopped up on drugs, insanely violent and indiscriminate, was responsible for a staggering string of robberies, shootings, insurance frauds, auto thefts, and narcotic sales. They hurled grenades at storefronts of recalcitrant, stubborn, extortion victims in California. So if you had a storefront and they're trying to extort money out of you and you're like, fuck you, I ain't paying you, guess what? Hand grenades are coming. If you keep fucking around after that, they're going to kill you. They assassinated competing drug dealers, the wife of a gang member suspected of cheating on him, and an elderly man who was chased across the busy boulevard in Queens and shot twice in the head for refusing to vacate his rent-stabilized apartment. Damn. These are some ruthless people, man. You just wonder, like, these people are walking around in our society. Like I said the last stream, you never know who you're fucking with. When you're out in public, it doesn't matter if they look like they're weak, if they look like they ain't nothing. You don't know who anybody is. It's best to mind your business, treat everybody with respect until they don't treat you with respect, and just try to move on your way with no problems, because you don't ever know who's who. Who's at the end of his straw? I mean, who's on his last straw? Who's at the end of his rope? Who's suicidal and doesn't give a fuck? Who's wanted for murder? Who's just a psychopath and would kill you just as soon as look at you? Who is law enforcement? Who's a judge? I got in a beef one time on some road rage shit. I was pushing the issue. I tried to merge with traffic, and this one guy went out of his way to cut me off. I was in a work van too. I was pissed off because he cut me off. So he's in front of me. I'm tooting. And I'm going like this and out the window and fuck you. He came up to my truck. He showed me a badge. He's like, now what? I had the fucking wrench ready. I was about to hit him in the face with a fucking 15-inch crescent wrench. He showed me that badge. I was like, oh shit. By the time I got to Atlantic City, he had 4 cop cars waiting for me. Luckily, I didn't get charged with nothing, but I learned a valuable lesson. And luckily, I didn't have to pay for it with my life. Another time, I was in Atlantic City in my truck at the time, 25 years ago. Same thing. Here's what happened. Me and my boy, the Puerto Rican guy I was telling you about, let me stay at his house. Blunt man, you see him in the chat sometimes. He's in the passenger side, I'm in the driver's side. We said something that was fucking funny as hell, and so him and I are laughing. A car pulls up at the red light, and we happen to be laughing, so we had smiles on our faces. We both looked to see who pulled up on the right of us. He thought we were laughing at him. We weren't laughing at him. We don't know who the fuck this guy is. And so he starts doing the road rage thing. We get to the next red light, and me and my boy jump out of the truck. We're ready to fucking put it on him. Guy pulls out a knife. I was like, you fucking pussy, you bitch-ass motherfucker. But I didn't go around there. He was just holding his ground at the driver's side. You don't never know. What if he had a gun? That could have been the end of me. For what? For a mistaken road rage? Like, doesn't make any sense. That's why I love my new philosophy. It's my religion now. Stoicism. In the future, I'm going to start sharing more stoicism with you guys. Because now that I'm a little older, I wish I had somebody to teach me when I was younger. Instead of being such a hothead and being so angry all the time. To just cool it a little bit, you know what I mean? So, love to share that with you guys. So, meanwhile, the Goldberg gang, hopped up on drugs, insanely violent and indiscriminate, was responsible for a staggering string of robberies, shootings, insurance frauds, auto thefts, and narcotic sales. They hurled grenades at storefronts of recalcitrant extortion victims in California and performed contract murders as far away as Texas. They assassinated competing drug dealers, the wife of a gang member suspected of cheating on him, and an elderly man who was chased across a busy boulevard in Queens and shot twice in the head for refusing to vacate his rent-stabilized apartment. On another occasion, gang members were paid to kill 2 teenagers who had robbed and beaten a man with a hammer, known on Brooklyn streets as Giacomo. Giacomo, who owned an antique Mercedes-Benz dealership, was also a major drug dealer with a long rap sheet. Giacomo dispensed the contract at Coney Island Hospital. A day later, one of the teens was lured from his apartment to meet a friend who was supposedly waiting downstairs in a parked car. A friend. When he peered outside the window, he was shot in the face with a .38 caliber revolver loaded with copper-jacketed bullets. So, these 2 teenagers had robbed and beaten a man with a hammer to death. Well, it doesn't say to death, but they beat him with a hammer. And the guy who they beat up was Giacomo. So Giacomo owned an antique Mercedes-Benz dealership and was a major drug dealer. See what I'm saying? You never know who you're fucking with. These 2 slick-ass teenagers, they thought they were going to roll somebody. They beat him with a hammer. Guess what? The one guy ends up getting shot in the face. Let's see what happens to the other guy. It was inevitable that, given their shared interests in the spoils of Brighton Beach, Goldberg and Agran... Alright, so they only got one of them. That sent the other one a message, though. It was inevitable that, given the shared interests in the spoils of Brighton Beach, Goldberg and Agran would run afoul of each other. One issue that proved to be a constant source of friction was the disputes that had never been able to resolve the problems. I think I read that wrong. Hold on a sec. One issue that proved to be constant source of friction was the collection of extortion money from Brighton Beach businesses. Sit-downs to discuss their turf disputes had never been able to resolve the problems. So they had a beef about territory. They sat down and tried to resolve it. No good. Once, the Mayfield brothers even broke Schuster's nose. Goldberg finally became so frustrated that he put out a standing $25,000 contract on Agran's head. This is back in the 80s. That's a good deal of money. In May 1984, Agran commanded Goldberg to attend a meeting at the El Caribe Country Club. Goldberg, his Lieutenant Rivera, and several other gang members showed up to find 50 taciturn, heavy-armed Russians waiting for them at a large oak table. Oh, shit. Oh, no. All right, so you got Goldberg and Agran. Agran's the guy we've been talking about the whole time. This Goldberg guy and Agran had a beef. They tried to sit down and resolve it, but they couldn't resolve it. Somebody broke somebody's nose. Finally, the Goldberg guy got so frustrated he put out 25 grand on Agran. So then, in May 1984, Agran told Goldberg, yo, come to the El Caribe Country Club. So Goldberg and one of his boys, Rivera, and several other gang members showed up. But when he got there, there was 50 heavily armed Russians waiting for them at a, oh shit, what's going to go down now? At a large oak table. But there's a word we got to look up. Taciturn. To find 50 taciturn, heavily armed guys. Taciturn means what? They ain't going to take no shit? Taciturn. Oh, they weren't saying shit, so they're just standing there staring at him. Oh, shit. Oh, man. You know it's a bad day when you show up with one and like 4 or 5 guys, and there's 50 motherfuckers waiting for you like this, and they ain't even talking. Oh, boy. It's about to go down. Agran demanded to know if Goldberg was responsible for having shot him. Remember, he got shot in his face and his neck. He's like, yo, did you fucking kill me? You try to kill me? In the dim room, Agran's face seemed to dissolve into the shadows, but there was enough light to see that he was cradling a shotgun as he sat in a white wicker chair across from Rivera. The diminutive Don, diminutive means he was probably small of stature. He said, why you shoot me in the fucking face? Goldberg and Rivera were silent. Goldberg is the other guy with his main man, Rivera. The diminutive Don leaned forward and spat. Why you shoot me in the fucking face? Goldberg and Rivera were silent, each waiting for the other to respond. We didn't do it, Rivera finally said, although he was, in fact, the one who had disfigured Agran in the botched hit by Goldberg. So Goldberg did try to kill him. And it was the very guy he brought with him to this meeting. Oh, they're fucked. Although Agran had not seen the shooter's face, he had caught a glimpse of the man's boots as he laid on the ground after he got shot. Let me see your fucking boots, Agran growled. I don't own a pair, Rivera replied, his eyes darting to his feet. I don't own any boots. Eyeing him suspiciously, Agran looked around the room, and he demanded that Goldberg's crew all put their feet on the table. He intended to inspect each of their footwear. When nobody moved, he shouted, What's the matter? Don't want to? One by one, Goldberg's men raised their feet onto the table. The Don was enraged. He didn't recognize anybody's shoes. This was the little Don. Agran, the little Don. Goldberg settled back in his chair uneasily. Speaking in Russian, he swore he was innocent. But if Agran wanted trouble, he warned, he had brought sufficient firepower. Agran sent a scout outside, who returned and reported that the parking lot was swarming with gunmen. It was a Mexican standoff. Oh, shit. Goldberg convinced Agran that he wasn't involved in the attempt on his life, and the meeting ended without bloodshed. Whew. Can you imagine how tense that must have been? But if Goldberg was the most likely suspect in the attempt on Agran's life, he was hardly the only rival who wanted the Don dead. Remember, they said about this guy, Agran, he valued fear above honor. So he was the type of guy who would fucking try to squeeze you and embarrass you and make you fearful and try to intimidate you rather than deal with honor and put a little, just act like a little more old school. And that's why people hated him, because he didn't play according to the rules. So he had a lot of enemies. On May 4th, 1985, Agran's brawny chauffeur, Boris Neifeld, was sitting outside his boss's apartment building in a black Lincoln town car, waiting to make the weekly drive across East Manhattan's old Lower East Side. The ornate 19th century bathhouse had been a favorite hangout of Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and Lucky Luciano during Prohibition. So this place has got some history. Alright, so let me paint the picture. It's May 4th, 1985. Agran, the Don that everybody hates, he's got his chauffeur, big-ass Boris Neifeld, and he's sitting in the car outside, in the black Lincoln town car. They're waiting to go to the Russian and Turkish baths on Manhattan's Lower East Side, something they did every week. This place was a place where Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and Lucky Luciano went in the old days. When the establishment kept a special cubby hole behind the towel counter where the gangsters could deposit their Tommy guns back in the day. It was a perfect place for Agran to have sit-downs with his pals, all of them sweating in the heat of the 200-degree steam room, while burly attendants struck their backs with bundles of oak branches. On that morning, the 53-year-old Agran was still upstairs in his 6th-floor apartment, shaving in his lavish bathroom. Its imported marble and gold leaf fixtures, a recently completed renovation that had cost $150,000, a lot of money back then, were elegant even by Russian mob standards. Agran patted his disfigured face with expensive cologne, slipped on his baggy blue pinstripe suit, and grabbed his brown fedora. While most Russian mobsters swaggered around in sharkskin suits and enough gold jewelry to stand out like lighthouses on a moonless night with their Mr. T starter kit, Agran's associates joked that he dressed more like a longtime resident of a senior citizen's home. So he was low-key the way he dressed. Just before he left, he told his common-law wife, a striking blonde cabaret singer, that he would meet her for dinner later that night at a Brighton Beach restaurant. You could tell he's about to get it. At exactly 8:35 a.m., Agran passed the elevator button. At exactly 8:35 a.m., Agran pressed the elevator button outside his apartment door. Suddenly, a man wearing a jogging suit and sunglasses stepped from behind a corner in the hallway and shot him at point-blank range, hitting him twice in the right temple. He fell to the floor, blood pooling out around him on the black and white marble tiles. At least it took 3 hits to get him, though. Tough guy. But he got what was coming to him, didn't he? And that's the end of Chapter 2 of the Russian Mafia. Let's see what's in store for the next chapter here. Brighton Beach Goodfellas. So, I mean, it just goes to show you, right? You think you're all that? You can get played out like a scratch-off ticket. It's best to be humble. It's best to be firm with people, but fair, right? It's like being the man of a household. If you're the man of the household, you're responsible for your wife and your kids. But because you are, you demand respect, and you also demand that they listen to what you have to say. But you know you got the final say. This is your household. You're the man of the house. You should not be a tyrant. You should be fair, but firm, right? A woman doesn't like a pushover. She doesn't like a bitch that gives in to everything. Well, where do you want to eat? Oh, I don't know. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. Be a man. Be firm. But also be fair. When you're wrong, admit it. Be humble. And that shows more strength than a guy who, when he's wrong, constantly acts like he's right. That's weakness. Especially in a woman's eyes. So, same thing. If you're a Mafia Don, if any of you guys decide to be a Mafia Don, be firm but fair. You gotta enforce rules. You can't let people get away with shit. Once you make rules, you can't go against them, otherwise it undermines your authority. It's like raising kids. One parent wants to let the kid get away with this, but the other doesn't. Now one person looks like the bad guy and the other one looks like the good guy. Got to be on the same page. Right? Rules are rules. If the rules are unfair, then you think about it and you come up with new rules. That's it. Same thing with running the mafia. When you try to dominate by intimidation too much, they're going to get your ass. Somebody's going to get you. It's hard enough to survive even if you are firm but fair. Let alone being a fucking tyrant. Nobody likes a tyrant. Nobody wants to follow a tyrant. You don't rule out of fear. You only rule partially out of fear. But the fear should only be if you break rules. That's the only time you got to fear. As long as you're within the rules, you're good. But when you overstep your bounds, that's when I got to fucking enforce the law. You know what I mean? So it's a good little pointer, that chapter. All right, let's check the chat. Primordial Soup, trying to be nice, he said, I've had guns pulled on me 3 times in my life, and all 3 times it was a colored gentleman. Don't worry, I know what you want to say. I appreciate you keeping it nice. A colored gentleman. I had a shotgun put in my face. And it's true that you never know what you're going to do until it happens. You could say all day long what you're going to do. Hey, fucker, he fucks with me, I'm gonna fuck. You have no idea what you're going to do until it happens. And then you go on autopilot. At least I did in my case. I was 19. and I had a guy who lived behind me, and I had to go through an alleyway to go to his house. I needed some chronic. I was like, wanted to go bum a joint from my boy. So as I'm going through the alleyway, there was the house on the corner. It was a gay guy and a transvestite. Even back then, this was like 1991. I went through, I got some chronic, and then I was coming back, and I heard my name in the window. It was a basement window. And I heard, yeah, that Shmeal guy, I'm going to fuck him up when I see him. I was like, and I let the anger get me. And I stuck my face in the window. I said, whose ass you going to kick, motherfucker? Trying to be all hard and shit. Well, I got in an argument with the one guy, and then out came the trans testicle with a shotgun. Put it in my face. Bah! I started fighting. It dropped the gun. Then the dude picked it up. I fell on the ground, and he's got me like this. I'm on the ground. I'm dead. I'm gonna die. I stand up. Still didn't shoot me. I take a step closer. Still didn't shoot me. I finally got within range. This is, it sounds like a long time because when your adrenaline's pumping, it feels like a long time. But this is a matter of seconds. When I stood up, I got closer. I got close enough to hit him, and I just hit him. Bah! I figured, if he's not going to shoot me by now, I'm going to die anyway, right? I'm going to swing. So I hit him. Boom! The shotgun drops. Trans testicle picks up the fucking gun again. Now I'm beating on him. I'm fucking kicking, and I was throwing all kind of shit. I didn't know I could fight that good back then. I didn't know. You're on autopilot. The adrenaline's running. It was crazy. So I beat him all the way from the alleyway to the front of the door, and I turn around, and the trans testicle comes with the butt of the shotgun. Bah! On my head. Bleeding, fucking blood all over. I turn around. Bah! I caught the trans testicle. So they're both out. And I ran upstairs. I was still scared, because all I know is shotgun. You never fight better than when you think you're about to die. At least in my case. Some people will freeze up. Some people won't know what to do. And some people will just fucking react. And there was no planning. There was no thought. It was just all reaction. And I ran upstairs, and I had my boy at my apartment. He was waiting for me to come back with a J. All he knows is I'm going out to get a J from next door. I come back, fucking blood all over me and shit. I'm like, yo, fucking call 911, bro. Call 911. Cops came, and they gripped him up. I was like, yo, they attacked me, blah, blah, blah. And so I got lucky. I don't know if it was loaded. I still don't know to this day. But I got lucky. I'll just say that. I got real lucky. You don't ever know. The Stoicism book is, Stoicism was started by a guy named Zeno. Zeno. I like a guy named Epictetus. So the book I have, yeah, guys, life is short. Life is precious. It's not really worth the drama. You got to do what you got to do, though, sometimes. But see, I blame myself. Looking back as an older man now, looking back then, I blame myself. Because I didn't have to stick my face in his window and go, whose ass you gonna kick, motherfucker, trying to be the tough guy. I could have got killed trying to act like Mr. Tough Guy. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. What I should have done is just put that little piece of information in my brain and said, all right, this motherfucker wants to try to fuck me up. And then I would have been on point, and I could have watched him. Most likely nothing would have happened, but I knew not to trust him, and I would have known, to keep my eyes open. That would have been the smart way to go. But I went to fucking, when you're young, that adrenaline gets going, and you just can't control yourself. That's why this stoicism really does help control me. This right here is, it's a collection. It's 3 different things. Plato is, it's about Socrates. Socrates was Plato's teacher. Socrates was put to death with the hemlock. And it's all about him and his court case when he tried to plead his innocence and all that. It's really pretty cool. It's some tough reading, though. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really, really difficult reading. Epictetus is a bunch of golden sayings. It's just him with a bunch of little quotes about life. And Marcus Aurelius was the last great Stoic emperor of Rome. So he was really, when he wasn't putting Christians to death, let's call it what it was, because he was burning Christians and feeding them to the lions and shit. When he wasn't doing that, he was a really nice guy. And so I've learned a lot from that book. That book has taught me. But the thing about that book was I would have never been susceptible to it when life was good. Because when life was good, I didn't give a fuck about nothing. I was like, yeah, fuck everything, I'm good. But when I got into a low point, right before I moved to my friend's house, where he let me live with him for 1.5 years, my Puerto Rican buddy, I was in such a bad way. Here I was, 41 years old. I had to move back in with my mother. I had been on my own since I was 17. Never needed help from anybody. And I had to live with my mom, 41 years old. And we weren't getting along. And we wanted to fucking pretty much kill each other. And it was bad. I was at the lowest point in my life. And so I found this in the attic. And it was an old family friend left it in our attic. So I would take long ass baths at nighttime for like 2 hours at a time. When the water got cold, I would drain it again and just put new hot water in there. I was in there, my fucking toes and fingers turned into, they were all swollen up and looked all weird and shit. I was depressed. But I never went the route of doing antidepressants or anything like that. I knew this was something I have to work out on my own. That I would have to go through this, you know what I mean? That I would have to experience this low point to be able to get it beyond me, to get past me. And this book, it was like finding religion. I'll be honest. At first, I was like, this shit, I wasn't really connecting with it. But then I started reading it slower. I would take one sentence and I would say, well, what does that mean? And then I would kind of think about it. Then I'd read another sentence, little pieces at a time. And eventually, it started to make sense. And it's like, because you could look at my old retarded videos on YouTube, which I keep there to remind me how much I've changed. But I was a big time atheist, you know? And I still don't believe in like the Christian God or the Muslim God or the Jewish God. But I believe in something more than me. Like the universe, like nature. So there's something that created all of us. It's not like something that thinks and plans, or it's not something that you could really pray to, but it's something to be thankful towards, that it created you. Does that make any sense? So to me, it's like the universe or nature is my God. So when I hear the word God in this book, that's what I think of. This whole fucking mystery that is the universe. And it really helped me out. Let's see. The first part is the apology of Socrates. That's the first one. Trans-testicle. Did I say that? Is that still legal? And then there's got Crito. Crito is one of Socrates' friends. He's talking about how he feels now that he knows Socrates got to die. It's pretty sad, actually. But Socrates was solid, man. He had to put himself to death. He had to drink this poison called hemlock. It was from a plant. They made him put it to death. And then Phaedo. Phaedo was another one of Socrates' friends. These are their speeches. Their last words before he got put to death. And that's it with the Socrates part. But I'm reading about this guy, Socrates, who's being put to death. And he was an old man at the time. He's being put to death because they said he was corrupting the youth, because he was making them think. Even today, you see what they do to us on YouTube. People that make other people think, they get banned, they get put to death. And that's what happened to Socrates. But he didn't bitch, he didn't moan, he didn't get scared. He just was thankful to the end for everything he had. And I'm like, God damn, and I thought I had it bad, you know? I'm sitting in the bathtub soaking, thinking, my life sucks. This is the worst it's ever been, and blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, I got 2 arms, 2 legs. I'm healthy. I still got a chance to rebound. I'm fucking only 41. I got half my life ahead of me. Hopefully. And I'm like, wow, why am I taking this fucking negative attitude? And I started thinking about it. I felt embarrassed that I was mad and that I was at such a low point, because it's obvious that I don't know what hard times are. And so it put things in perspective for me. And then Epictetus, he was a slave whose master beat him so bad he busted his legs up, he never was able to walk right again. And he's talking about how lucky he is. I'm like, here's a guy, he was a slave, got beaten so bad, and all he's talking about is how thankful he was about shit. I'm like, man, I gotta change my attitude. That's the reason I was so mad and angry and upset, is because I had all these expectations of what life should be, when you should just be happy no matter what, because it can always get worse. That's the main thing. Yep, we are babies. Sometimes we are. What's up, sister? HT is cool. HT is cool, man. Be patient. HT is changing. And I think a lot of people are wrong about him. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm going to put my faith in HT for now. I believe in him. I really do. I think he's on the right track. And I think he's learning. He's on a process, like all of us are. You too? Cheers. I got some cheap-ass wine tonight. Oh, yeah. That's how much I drank already. Holy shit. So that's about it. Anybody got any questions or anything? Oh, shit, Shan. I think you just revealed something about yourself, Shan. The first time I heard the word spanner is when I was reading 1984 by Eric Blair, a.k.a. The guy that wrote 1984. He said it's a common phrase in England. He said, throw a spanner in the works. I'm like, what the fuck's a spanner? Because I'm American. I looked it up, and it's an English word for a wrench. So I'm going to have to go on a limb and say, you're either from England or Australia. Am I on to it? Yes, Orwell. Thank you. Because I never hear any Americans say spanner in the works. Aussie. Ah, see? Nice. Okay, cool. We got global reach up in this motherfucker. Oh, you just logged on? It's alright. It's not that long. Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, it's 2 hours. Should I leave with a little guitar? Just a little jam I made to my little kitty cat that died. My little buddy, I had him for 20 years. When he died, I made a song that dedicated it to him. It's just like part of it. So yeah. Alright guys, we're wrapping it up. Appreciate you guys being here. If in the future we get to where we're like at 200 people watching at once and all, I'll remember these times when it was only just a couple of us just hanging out. It's like, it's more special when it's just a few of us, you know what I mean? These are the good old times. Sheet of tin is a rough life. What you mean? Let me take a look. Blue Velvet, the name of the book is, it's 3 pieces in one. It's Plato's Apology. It's Epictetus's Golden Sayings. And it's Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. You can look up all 3 independent of each other. Excuse me. This one just happens to be all 3 in one book. It's good shit. I'll tell you right now, it's hard to read. It's like when you read the Bible, it's all in like old time archaic writing. So you really got to take your time, read one sentence, try to figure it out. Plectrum loss. Sister, all good. How people get sad and people get better. How are you? Night after night he treats you right, baby. It's the guitar, man. What does that mean? A sheet of tin. Anyway, guys, cheers. Thanks, Primordial. I can't be anybody but who I am. I'll be honest. Yeah, good. Thank you, Jews. I mean, Shiksa. You can say what you want about me. People can say what they want about me. And they might be right about some things, but they can never say that I'm a phony. I am who I am, and that's what you get. Alright, guys. Catch you on the rebound.